Hey, you ever have one of those days where everything just feels wrong? Where the air is thick and the city has this strange, quiet tension, like it's holding its breath. October 1st, 1910, in Los Angeles was one of those days. And at 1:07 in the morning, that breath was released in a fireball that shattered windows for blocks and lit up the night sky. It was an explosion so massive, it was heard from the harbor to the Hollywood Hills. And at its center was the most powerful institution in the growing city, the Los Angeles Times building. This wasn't an accident. This was a declaration of war. Welcome back. I'm Ibnul J. Farabi, and this is Underworld Kings, the rise and fall from light, not studios. Today, we're unraveling the story of a bombing that aimed to silence a newspaper, but instead ignited a conflict that would expose the brutal underworld battle for the soul of a city. To understand why someone would bomb a newspaper, you have to understand Los Angeles at the turn of the century. It was a boomtown, exploding in population and ambition. And two men, in particular, had visions for what it should become. On one side, Harrison Gray Otis, the pugnacious, mustachioed publisher of the Los Angeles Times. He was a titan of industry, a fierce anti-union crusader who saw organized labor as a mortal threat to the freewheeling capitalist paradise he was building. His paper wasn't just reporting the news. It was a weapon, smearing union organizers, supporting ruthless open-shop policies, and championing the interests of the city's business elite. Otis even called his home the Bivouac, and had a small cannon on his front lawn. This was not a man who shied away from a fight. On the other side were the unions, struggling for a foothold in this anti-union fortress of a city. And their most militant edge was the International Association of Bridge and Structural Iron Workers. Their secretary-treasurer was a man named John J. McNamara, who, along with his brother James, ran the union's affairs with an iron fist. Faced with employers who would rather shut down than recognize a union, the McNamaras had a secret. They didn't just organize picket lines. They organized dynamite. A shadowy, dynamic squad would target non-union construction sites and recalcitrant businesses, using explosives as a brutal form of collective bargaining. The Los Angeles Times, with its blistering editorials, was public enemy number one. The plot to bomb the Times building was chilling in its simplicity. James McNamara, the younger brother, traveled to Los Angeles under an alias. He cased the building, noting the alleyway that ran alongside it, Ink Alley, where printing ink was delivered. In the dead of night on September 30th, he placed a suitcase containing 16 sticks of dynamite, rigged to a mechanical timer, against the alley wall. The building's basement, unknown to him, also contained natural gas lines and barrels of printing ink. When the dynamite went off, it didn't just blow a hole in the wall. It triggered a secondary explosion of apocalyptic proportions. The building was gutted by fire within minutes. 21 men died, typesetters, printers, clerks, not tycoons, but working men. The city was horrified. Immediately, Harrison Gray Otis pointed the finger. He ran a headline calling it the crime of the century and blamed unionist bombers. The unions fired back, accusing Otis of having a faulty gas line and using the tragedy to smear the labor movement. For months, the investigation went nowhere. That is, until a private detective named William Burns entered the picture. Hired by a coalition of business leaders, Burns was a showman and a genius. His big break came in April 1911, in Detroit. He tracked down James McNamara, who was living under yet another alias, and arrested him. A few days later, he nabbed John McNamara in Indianapolis. The evidence was damning: dynamite, wiring, correspondence detailing the plot. The brothers were extradited to Los Angeles to stand trial for murder. It seemed like an open and shut case. But then, something extraordinary happened. The most famous lawyer in America, the people's attorney, Clarence Darrow, took the McNamara's case. Darrow was a legendary defender of labor and civil liberties. His involvement electrified the nation and gave the unions hope. A massive defense fund was raised. It was shaping up to be the trial of the century, a definitive battle between capital and labor. But Darrow, a realist, privately looked at the mountain of evidence and knew a not guilty verdict was impossible. He faced a horrifying choice: let the trial go on, likely ending with his clients swinging from the gallows and potentially triggering nationwide riots, or seek a deal. In a stunning, secret negotiation just as the trial began, he struck a plea bargain. James McNamara pleaded guilty to murder. John pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of conspiracy. They were sentenced to life in prison. The labor movement was shattered, feeling utterly betrayed. Clarence Darrow was later put on trial for jury bribery himself, though he was acquitted. I think about this story often from my desk here in New York. As an engineer, I look at that building, that alley, that timer, and see a terrible, efficient system designed for destruction. As someone fascinated by stories, I see the human tragedy, the 21 lives lost, the brothers consumed by their cause, the city traumatized. But as an entrepreneur, I see something else, the danger of absolutism. Harrison Gray Otis and the McNamara brothers were mirror images in their zeal. Both were so convinced of their own righteousness, so embedded in their own underworlds, one of corporate power and media influence, the other of secrecy and dynamite, that they could only see the other as a monster to be destroyed. The real battlefield wasn't Ink Alley. It was the space for dialogue, for compromise. And that space was the first casualty. The bombing of the Los Angeles Times didn't break the unions in LA, but it crippled them for decades. It cemented the city's reputation as an open-shop town, and it left a permanent scar. The tragedy became a cautionary tale about what happens when ideological war turns literally explosive. It reminds us that in the battles to shape our cities and our society, the loudest voices, the most extreme actions, often write the bloodiest chapters, but they rarely write the final one. The true kingpins of any underworld, whether of crime or of unchecked power, are often the ideas that promise a better future at any cost. Thanks for listening to this episode of Underworld Kings. If these stories of power, conflict, and the shadows of history resonate with you, please follow the show wherever you get your podcasts. And for more deep dive documentaries from our team, visit Light Not Studios at lightnotstudios.com. I'm Ibnul J. Farabi. Until next time, take care.